So Guyana is an English-speaking country in South America that has a Muslim as its president. It only has 800,000 people, less than a million. Oil has been discovered there, a lot of oil. So Guyana is quickly becoming very wealthy. That's why we're going to look at a video called "Is This the Norway of Latin America?" Like I said again, Guyana is not actually Latin America; it's South America. But why they're referring to it as this as Norway, or as the Norway of Latin America, is because Norway. A lot of people might not know this. Norway is very wealthy in oil. It's a very rich and wealthy country. Has a lot of oil, small population. That's why they haven't joined and they don't want to join the EU because they have a lot of money and they would have to give some of that money to poor European countries. So they're actually being very selfish in Norway and they don't want to share the wealth with poor people. But that's a different story. Let's look at this video and we'll come back to comments. So, like I said, Guyana, a country in South America that speaks English and it's diverse. It had like a lot of Indians, Africans, etc. Muslim president. Let's have a look.
The world's fastest growing economy is this tiny nation tucked in between Venezuela, Brazil, and Suriname, Guyana. This nation of about 800,000 people is going through a massive transformation. And the reason for that growth is quite simple: oil. Lots and lots of oil.
Outside the US, I think like almost all the oil is being discovered in Guyana these days.
Guyana is really where the action is.
Here's how Guyana's growth stands out compared to the rest of the world. Its economy will expand by a staggering 27% in 2024. The oil reserves are so...
Hold on. Did I see some really poor Africa? Okay, so we got here Guyana by 24%, Niger by 11.1%, Senegal 8.8. Whoa, that's surprising. Niger is they had a coup or something, and it looks very poor. If you ever see pictures or videos of Niger, it's super poor. Senegal also just had an election, but that's good growth. And Libya is at war, but they have a lot of oil, so maybe that's why. And Venezuela 4.5%. I know Venezuela has an economic crisis, but yeah, a lot of growth.
Staggering 27% in 2024.
27.
The oil reserves are so vast that Venezuela's president, Nicolás Maduro, has escalated long-standing claims over the Essequibo region, which makes up about 70% of Guyana's territory. In addition to the threats from its neighbor, the oil poses other challenges. That's because while natural resource windfalls can create phenomenal wealth, they can also cause problems such as hyperinflation, social and political upheaval, and a widening wealth gap.
It is leadership that we need that acknowledges that it is very difficult to avoid the resource curse.
So how can Guyana toe the line between making the biggest oil discovery of the past decade and avoid the pitfalls that have doomed so many other petrostates? I've covered this region for more than a decade, and I was born in Caracas, where I witnessed firsthand the collapse of Venezuela's once booming economy, brought down by years of corruption and mismanagement of the world's largest oil reserves.
Walking through the streets of Georgetown, you wouldn't immediately think you're in the capital of the world's fastest growing economy. While there are major construction projects taking place and oil executives flooding into the city, there's still a long way to go in terms of infrastructure and public services. Decades of little to no investment in education is part of the reason why much of the Guyanese workforce is unprepared for the highly skilled jobs required for the oil industry.
Because of oil being found in Guyana, they have more opportunity because there is more company coming in and they need people to hire. They will use some of the local, train them. If it's a higher role, they will definitely bring other people outside of Guyana.
About half of Guyana's population lives abroad because of a historic lack of opportunities in the country.
Over half the population lives abroad. By the way, I don't know much about Guyana, but I know a lot about Suriname, which is the country next to Guyana. I know a lot about Suriname and the same situation. About half the Surinamese people in the world, they live in the Netherlands, which is crazy when you think about it. I think there's only about 400,000 people in Suriname, or half a million, and almost that same number live in the Netherlands.
But the oil transformation has lured some Guyanese back, like Sebastian de Freitas, who trained up as an ROV pilot for offshore oil platforms.
When I come back and I see how things are rapidly changing and moving, yes, I do want to be part of it. I do want to see people benefit. You can see that there's a shift, there's a change in the mentality of the average Guyanese in Georgetown.
For most of the almost 60 years since it declared independence from Britain, Guyana has been one of the poorest countries in South America. But now, it's said to produce more oil per person than anywhere in the world.
Oh man,
So the reserves stand in excess of 11.
that's crazy. That's like Qatar and the UAE and Kuwait and these kind of countries. To be honest, to me, it's kind of strange. It's kind of strange and not right that you can have a country like, for example, Qatar or Kuwait or the UAE, where you have a very small population that's less than a million, and they have so much oil, so much wealth, and right next to it you have a country like Yemen, which is very poor, big population, and people are struggling to make ends meet. So you have on one side you have let's say Qatar, which is organizing the World Cup and spending hundreds of billions on that. UAE, they're building golf courses in the desert. They're building hotels. They're building islands in the sea, and all of this stuff that doesn't really have any value. Kind of nonsense, if you ask me. And right next to it, you have Yemen with 30 million people who are being locked out of all that wealth. And at the same time, the Yemenis are Arabs, and the Qataris are Arabs, and the UAE population is Arabic. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. That doesn't make any sense to me. It only makes sense when you think about all the corporations that want to benefit from all the oil.
Billion barrels, but that is fastly growing.
But massive natural resource wealth isn't always good news. Countries that have discovered massive oil reserves are often prone to what is known as the paradox of plenty. This chart shows how, after the initial burst of growth when oil is discovered, economies that are more dependent on oil exports experience slower growth. That's partly because as more money flows into an economy,
It's all about organizing the oil. If you have a good leadership and they know how to take the oil money and open factories and create industry and diversify, then it's going to be fine. It's like a lot of money that you can use. There's no way that it's a negative thing. Just depends on the leaders.
to buy the oil, the country's currency becomes more expensive, making other exports also more expensive. Before its oil was discovered, Guyana's economy generated just $11,000 per person each year. Now, its GDP per capita has already surpassed that of Italy, and on its
Surpassed Italy. That's crazy. That's a wealthy European country. Italy is a wealthy, developed European country. And in the space of 4 years, Guyana has surpassed Italy's income. Like the average Guyanese is wealthier than the average Italian now. That's crazy. That is absolutely crazy.
current trajectory
I'm happy for the Guyanese people. I'm happy for them. I'm happy when any poor people become wealthier.
could overtake the United States by the end of the year. The other obvious problem
Welcome to Alzora City, a new waterfront community in Ajman.
when you get a huge influx of money is that there's a massive risk of inflation.
A lot of people are stressed out because the cost of living is rising.
I don't know why people are so negative. There's the resource curse. The inflation is gonna happen. People should be very very happy with this. This is a blessing.
We need to fight for a better wage constantly.
In Guyana, this newfound wealth has a risk of further deepening inequality tied to historic ethnic divisions. The nation's Indo-Guyanese population largely occupies the top 10% of wealth, while Afro-Guyanese and other groups are concentrated in the bottom 90%. The Guyanese have mixed feelings about how the profits are reaching them.
Nothing is coming our way. I got one property, one. I want iron money. Yeah. I want a fair share.
Those who are getting jobs in the industry seem more optimistic. Delroy McLean works at a construction site near one of Georgetown's poorest neighborhoods.
from my childhood, I grew up right here on the wharf. So this is my home. This is my backyard, my playground. Financially, I'm actually in a better position to help my family, to help myself better.
We need leadership that acknowledges that this is a difficult society. There are cleavages in the society.
What are people talking about? Guyana is a country of 800,000 people. They just found massive reserves of oil. They already surpassed the per capita of Italy. Like, why are people so pessimistic and so negative? They're talking about all these problems and all these possible problems. People need to be positive, focused, and just build the country.
Can't be eliminated just by government spending.
The country that has best managed to escape the resource curse is Norway. After oil and gas were discovered in the North Sea in the 1960s, Norway eventually set up a sovereign wealth fund. In other words, it took most of the riches generated by its oil and invested it. In fact, the fund now owns an average of 1.5% of every publicly traded company in the world. By investing most of the proceeds abroad, the money did not flow directly into the Norwegian economy, meaning no hyperinflation, no massive strengthening of the Norwegian krona, and when the oil and gas do finally run out, the country will still be sitting on a pile of wealth that will ensure its prosperity for generations to come. So can Guyana just copy the Norwegian model? Well, not exactly. Norway was already a fairly developed economy when it found its oil. It had railways, factories, and a strong education system. Guyana is a tiny economy in the grand scheme of things, and for the most part, hasn't invested in that sort of infrastructure until right now.
We're investing in creating new opportunities for growth. We're investing in creating opportunities for the expansion of the economy. We're investing in opportunities to give people a better quality of life.
This school is just one of the many public works we're seeing being built across Georgetown.
All right, guys, look, I don't think it's rocket science. It just takes good leadership to take the money. You don't need to be a genius to do any of this. People think, oh, people are in government, they're wearing suits, they're giving speeches, they must be geniuses. We could never, anybody can do that. You just need to be somebody who's not crazy, somebody who has an idea, who has an actual willingness to work for the country and to improve it and to take difficult decisions and not to take money and put it in your pocket when corrupt people come to you and they want to bribe you for their benefit at the expense of the people. That's all it takes. You don't need to be a genius. So, guys, that's it. Listen, I'm happy for Guyana. I'm happy when I see people from the third world make money and become wealthy and live better lives. I'm happy when that happens anywhere in the world. So, guys, like and subscribe. Check out the sponsor barakapa.com. Use my discount code for a 10% discount, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.